Hello everyone, and welcome to section 2 out of 5 out of the 2018 Storm Spotter training from the National Weather Service in Milwaukee. I'm meteorologist Ben Herzog, and I'll be guiding you through this training. In this section, we'll be talking about preparation for storm spotting. As you prepare to spot for severe weather, there are a couple of key questions you want to ask yourself. First of all, what are your sources of weather information? Second of all, how do you get your severe weather forecast? Do you understand the severe weather forecasts that are out there? Well, when it comes to forecasts from the National Weather Service, there are 3 different phases of severe weather forecast, and we'll cover these as we go forward. For now, we'll leave it with there are the outlook phase, the watch phase, and the warning phase. Having a reliable source of weather information is a key to the storm spotting process. Make sure you have a professional weather source. The National Weather Service, local TV meteorologist, or private weather firms are all great sources of weather information and can provide some very valuable information for you. Moreover, don't be afraid to use technology. Use the internet. If you're going to be a mobile spotter, certainly use mobile internet and use any sort of mobile devices you can get your hands on. Use TV, use radio, use anything you can to make yourself as aware of the weather as possible. So I'd like to provide a little bit more information about the National Weather Service in Milwaukee. Our office is located on the Jefferson-Waukesha County line, and we are staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've got 23 dedicated staff members, and we're responsible for a number of different things. For the purposes of this training, we do things like warnings, that's severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, and we provide forecasts. Several days out, we can start talking about the chances of severe weather. One thing I'd like to point out is it's very important to stay updated as severe weather approaches. Say, for example, that today is Wednesday and you hear that the National Weather Service is calling for a chance of severe storms on Saturday. Well, don't just wait around until Saturday comes and then say, oh, they said that there's going to be severe weather today, I'd better get ready to go spot it. Well, no, what's going to happen is our forecasts are going to get more and more accurate and precise the closer we get to an event. So if on Wednesday you hear that there are severe storms possible, well, check back on Thursday and Friday and certainly on Saturday before you make your decision to go out and spot. Don't stick to a forecast you heard 3 days ago. Here's a look at the website for the National Weather Service in Milwaukee. Website's easy enough to remember, weather.gov/Milwaukee, and you can find a number of different things on this website. First of all, you'll see watches and warnings. You'll see the map here in the middle has got a number of different things on there, including flash flood warnings, flash flood watches. If there were to be severe thunderstorm or tornado watches or warnings, anything like that is going to show up on this map in the middle. Additionally, you can get your local forecast by simply clicking on your location on the map in the middle. And then if you were to scroll just a little bit further down here, you'd see something called our weather story, which basically highlights any impactful weather over the next 7 days or so. When it comes to severe weather forecasts from the National Weather Service, they generally come in 3 different stages. The first stage is the outlook. This generally happens several days to up to maybe 1 day in advance, and there's a couple of different forms this comes in, graphical and text. Here's an example of a severe weather outlook from a portion of the National Weather Service called the Storm Prediction Center. You can see that the marginal, slight, and enhanced areas all cover a pretty large geographic domain, and they're valid for an entire day. So this would maybe be issued for tomorrow or the next day, covering that entire portion of the day. As we get closer to the time of tornadoes or storms occurring, that's when we enter the watch phase. Generally, this is 2 to 6 hours in advance, and what this means is conditions are becoming likely. Also notice geographically the arrow becomes slightly more focused. Instead of focusing on all of the southern Great Lakes and Midwestern states, it now focuses just on southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. And then finally, when we get to the point that the event is either ongoing or we're up to an hour in advance of the event, that's when we enter the warning phase. This is much smaller and much more focused, typically just focused on the individual storms we expect to produce severe weather. Here is another example of an outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Along with the outlook categories that you see here, You can also see probabilities for damaging winds, tornado, and large hail. So I'd like to provide a little bit more information about the thunderstorm risk categories that the Storm Prediction Center issues. You can see they actually issue 6 different categories, going from just general thunderstorms where no severe thunderstorms are expected to high risk where we're looking for widespread severe storms. In general, the further you go to the right on this chart, the more likely and the more dangerous severe weather is likely to be. The way I like to explain this to people is once you get to slight risk, which is yellow on here, that tends to be the point at which meteorologists start to get excited. We're not necessarily looking for widespread severe weather, but severe weather is probably going to happen somewhere in the area outlooked. We may just see 1 or 2 tornadoes, some reports of strong winds or wind damage, or maybe some hail up to 1 inch, maybe 2 inches. The further we go right, you see an enhanced numerous severe storms possible, moderate, widespread severe storms likely, and then high, widespread severe storms expected. And you'll also notice long-lived and very widespread and particularly intense storms. These types of things would be big tornado outbreaks or derechos, which are very strong windstorms. Fortunately for us here in Wisconsin, we don't see very many high-risk days. So that's the outlooks. Going on to the next phase of severe weather forecast is for the watches. These are issued when conditions are becoming favorable to occur within the next 2 to 6 hours. Severe thunderstorm and tornado watches are issued via the Storm Prediction Center down in Norman. They're issued in collaboration with the local forecast office, so there's always a local person making sure that these forecasts make sense for our area. Here's an example of a tornado watch that was issued for portions of southern Wisconsin as a line of storms came through the area. That brings us to the final stage of severe weather forecast, warnings. Warnings are issued when conditions are occurring now or about to occur at your location. When it comes to severe weather, there are 3 different types of warnings that we're concerned with. Severe thunderstorm warnings. These are issued when winds are expected to exceed 58 miles an hour, or we're looking for hailstones larger than quarters or 1 inch in diameter. Tornado warnings. These are issued when radar indicates a tornado or we get a spot or report of a tornado. And then finally, flash flood warnings. These are issued when we see rapid rise of creeks or streams and roads may become washed out or impassable. Now, this is different than your typical river flooding that may take several days or even weeks to rise and fall. This is much more quick hitting, maybe on the order of a few hours. Flash flood warnings are mentioned here because they're particularly dangerous and they're actually the #1 thunderstorm related killer, so they're not to be taken lightly. There are a number of different ways to get your forecast from the National Weather Service, and a good new way to get it is the National Weather Service Situation Report. This is a new product starting this spring, and you can find it on our homepage at weather.gov/Milwaukee. You'll see on the right image here, that is an example of the right side of our homepage, and you can just click Situation Report in the top right portion there. You can also just go to weather.gov/MKX/sitrep, and you can get it directly through that link. These are typically created with core partners in mind, but they are available publicly. And again, they're going to emphasize on any big weather threats we've got in the next few to 7 days. Other places that you can get information from the National Weather Service are on social media. We're very active on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. On Facebook and YouTube, you can find us at /NWSMilwaukee, and Twitter, we are at NWSMKX. Unfortunately, the National Weather Service does not have an app, but we do have a mobile site at mobile.weather.gov. Here's an example of what that looks like on the left-hand side here. And what you can do is actually set this to your home screen of your smartphone, and when you click on the little link that pops up, it'll behave just like an app. If you're interested in an app that will have some push notification capabilities, you can download the FEMA app. And what that'll do is push out notifications of warnings straight to your phone, lets you know that you are under a severe thunderstorm or tornado or flash flood warning. Wireless emergency alerts are another way that you can get alerts for some very high impact warnings. As it stands, only tornado warnings and flash flood warnings are issued via these wireless emergency alerts, and these alerts automatically get pushed to your phone. It's possible in the future that we include high-end severe thunderstorm warnings on here, but at this point in time, that is not a capability. This is a great technology in that it goes out to everybody's phone regardless whether or not they have a weather app on their phone, but there are a few issues with it. The way it currently stands, it only sends out warnings to cell phone towers that are within a warning polygon. What that means is if you are just on the outside of a warning, but the cell phone tower you are currently receiving signal from is in, you're actually going to get this alert regardless if you are inside the warning. So that's something else we're going to try to be fixing as we go forward in the future, utilizing some geotagging capabilities of your phone. And one final way to get great source of weather information is from environmental sources, the age-old look out the window. While I can tell you exactly what's going on, there are certainly some hazards that come with environmental sources. Oftentimes your eyes may deceive you. What we're looking at here is a picture of the very deadly tornado in Joplin, Missouri back in May of 2011. This storm killed many people, and part of the reason it killed so many people is its tricky appearance. You may be able to see on the screen here a very faint outline of the tornado, but it really just looks like the whole cloud was on the ground, and that's kind of what happened. It was actually rain wrapped, so what that means is there was rain completely around the storm, completely obscuring any view of it. If the people that took this picture waited until they could actually see the tornado to take shelter, it would have been far too late and they would have not had enough time to get to shelter. So it's good to use the environmental sources and keep your eyes out, but you've got to have other ways to get information. So that wraps up the second step in the storm spotting process, preparation, and next we'll move on to deployment.